Rabbi Yochanan heard about Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Yosy a Kohen. He heard about them also learning Kabbalah, and he told them that I dreamt that we were by Har Sinai, and we got called in to the VIP room, to the box, and we were told that we were going to be Muzumanin Lekat Shlishis, which Rashi says is the inner circle, Kat Shlishis Shel Kitais HaYoshvos Lefnei Shechina. So we're going to be right in there in the inner circle. I think Mati said over in from the Art Scroll that was like the highest level. Doesn't mean the third on the outside, the third on the inside. Right? Is that what you said? I think you said that. That means that they were going to be closer to the Shekhinah. Okay, so as we get started, I just want to mention that today's shir should be a schus for Shalema, for Shimon Yehuda ben Rivka, and Shimon ben Chasya, and Yaakov Shmuel ben Chana, and Yisrael Moshe ben Yen the Gittel, and all those who need a for Shalema. Taner Rabban, Arba nichnasu lepardes. 4 people went into the pardes. The pardes refers to upstairs, close to the Rebbeinu Shalom. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but most Rishonim learn that it's not a geographical location; it's rather a spiritual location. Let's see what Tosha says. Tosha says it's a geographical location. Tosha says Kagoin al Yidei Shem v'lo alu l'mayla mamish. They didn't actually go up l'mayla. Elo yenir lehem kamosh alu v'chein pish baruch. But Tosha says he didn't actually go into those places, but in their mind they had such a vivid picture of what was going on. It's as if they were actually there. I remember when my son went into Rabbi Yakubovich's class, Rabbi Yakubovich Jr., Moshe Matcha Grunfeld told my wife that when Rabbi Yakubovich teaches about Kriyas Yamsuf to the boys, they literally get wet. That's how vividly they experience it. So that's how Tosfos is describing it. And Rabbi Kiva Eger here, if I'm not mistaken, is Mitzayin to a Gemara in Gittin. The Gemara in Gittin asks a Shaila, what happens if someone gives a get al manasha ela l'rakia? So that's an impossible thing to occur, and therefore the halacha is that the get is kaim and the t'nai is but an impossible t'nai is butler right away. So the shaila is what if ayidei shem someone could be alul l'shamayim, like we see in our Gemara. So if you learn like Tosfos that it wasn't alul l'mayla mamish, it's not fair. But if you learn like those who showing that it's alul l'mayla mamish, they mamish flew up with Hashem, so then that's a whole different story. I believe the Rabbeinu Chananel also speaks about it. Arba nichsul l'pardes. Tanu Rabbanan arba nichsul l'pardes. You know what? Let me first read the Gemara and then we'll go back into the Rabbeinu Chananel. So the Gemara says 4 Gedolei Olam went to have a hasaga of the Merkava. It's hard for me to describe. I don't even know what a pardes is. Literally, it means an orchard, but I guess that's where how we're referring to the Maisha Merkava. The Elohim, who are these 4 people? Ben Azai, Ben Zoima, Acher, and Rabbi Kiva. Does anybody know what Ben Azai's first name was? Like we don't. Shimon. You know what Ben Zoima's first name was? Shimon. It seems like all of the Bens are Shimons. I'm not sure why. Maybe. I don't know.
It says, Yosy, it says
I think you're saying something.
They were known only by their father's name because they did not receive smicha.
But they got into the Gemara. Pretty good. Okay. Rabbi Kiva Amar and Rabbi Kiva, comma. Amar and Rabbi Kiva. It seems like Rabbi Kiva was the tour guide, or he was there first, and he was telling them a little bit of information. Right. No, I understand, but it's not referring to that here. Prat, Remes, Pshat, Remes, Drush, and Soy.
Right.
But
they didn't get it.
okay.
That's why I'm saying nobody did everything.
Okay. So Amar Rabbi Kiva. So he warned them. Kisha'atem agin etzel avnei shayish tahar. You're going to get to a place where you're going to see pure, clear marble, and it looks like water. and you're going to think it's water. I'll tell you my mind. Don't say, oh, there's water in here. You know why? Because it's not accurate. You're a fool to think that it looks like water, but in fact, it's not. So what's the big deal if you make that mistake and you say water when it's not water? Someone who speaks falsehoods can't survive in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the last thing you want to do is right there in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to say something that's untrue. It's not going to work out well for you. Ben Azai hates it to mace. Ben Azai looked at something that he wasn't supposed to look at, or he analyzed, if it's not literal, analyzed something he wasn't supposed to analyze. He dug into an area that was over his head, and he died because of it. All of Akasa Vaimer, the Pasuk says about someone so holy like Ben Azai, who was Nifter, Yakar Be'eni Hashem, he was dear in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but Amav Salah Chasidav is even the Chasidim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who he loves, the Rebbeinu Shalom had to make him die because he saw what he shouldn't see. Ben Zayma, Hittitz V'Nifka. Ben Zayma also got hurt, and he ended up losing his clarity, losing his mental clarity. He lost his mind, the shtickle. And if you find sweetness, if you find honey, like the Ma'aser Makava, echoil, dayach, eat just a little bit. Pentis be'enu, because if you have too much of it, it becomes repulsive to you, like us, and you'll spit it out. Acher, what did he do? Kites v'netiyos. Since we're talking about a paradise, so the metaphor of kites, he cut down the plants. What he did is he tapped into an area that was a sitra achra. I'm not sure exactly what these things means, but it led that he was macharif and megadif. It's brought down in the Rishonim. And Rabbi Kiva yatzu b'shalom. Rabbi Kiva got out. He navigated himself well. He followed his own instructions. So let's look at Rabbeinu Chananel, because he has a very good, a very clear way of describing what's going on over here. Tanu Rabban, Arbon nichtu l'pardes Elohein v'nazu ben Zoyma acher Rabbi Kiva. Amal Rabbi Kiva, kishatem agim eitz el avnei shayish tahar al taimru ma'ayimayim mishum shenemer doiver shkorim al yuchen al negadeinai. Pirish, kinu pardes. It wasn't literally an orchard. We're referring to this area as an artist, as a pardes. Gan Eden, talk me'in Gan Eden. It's like Gan Eden. She genuza l'tzadikim. It's hidden away for tzadikim. Kach loisem mokim. So to this place that we're talking about here, who mokim ba'aravos. Aravos is that highest shemayim. Shanishamayis shel tzadikim tzururis play. That the neshamas of the tzadikim, like we said, are there. Umefurish behechalois shahayu hachachamim haruyin l'mida hazu. It's mefurish in hechalois that they were chachamim who were ruyin for this midah. Mispalalim, they would daven, umenaken atzam mikol over tuma, and they would clean themselves from any davar tuma. Bitzomim, and they would fast. Umetavlim, they would toivel. Umetarin, or yimishtamshem b'shemois, and they used shemois. Bitzoifin behechalois, they would see these hechalois that we're talking about. V'royin heich mishmoros hamalachim b'maimodam, they would actually be able to see. But were they physically there? Were they able to see it? I'm not sure how exactly this works. They were able to see the malachim who were being mishamish in their maimadas, the heichel, acher heichel, the lefnim heichel, and they see everything that's going on over there, hall after hall. It's Siva Oisem Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva told them, Kishatem agim lahabit, the uvnasa, the liba, etel avnishayish tar. So Rashi, so the Rabbi Chal said, the uvnasa the liba. So it's not physically you're being there. It's in your heart. You're coming to a certain, your mind and heart. You're coming to a certain clarity, a certain vision. When you get to this vision, al taimu mayim she'ein shamayim kolikar. In fact, there is no water there at all. Ella demus ba'olam niris. It just looks like it. Va'aymer mayim, and if you say mayim nedach, why? Shenim mishakar. You're speaking a falsehood. V'lashon Hashem afurish be'chalois rabasei. Mipnei sheshomer heichal Pesach sheyesh matil umashlichen elef alfei galimayim. The shomer heichal has a door that looks like there's water there. The ain't shama afilu tipach. It's just not even a drop there. Rabbi Kiva, near Kamish Yesh boy Gali Mayim. It looks like there's waves of water. Vein boy Afilu Tipachas. It's like waterboarding. You think you're underwater, but there's not really water there. Ela Avir Ziv Avne Shayish is the wind of the clarity and shine of the marble, of the pure marble. It looks like water. And if you ask what's this water for, because it's someone saying something inaccurate, and there's no room for any inaccuracies up there. They're not really traveling to a geographic place. Rather, this is a certain level of akara in their minds. Like someone who sees through an unclear vision. Again, this is some level of nevuah we don't even understand what this means. What does it mean? He looked where he wasn't supposed to look. He wasn't really anywhere to look. So he said too many shemis. He tried to get a greater clarity by saying more shemis, and he came to a spiritual place that was too hot for him. He went crazy. And since the Gemara is referring to this spiritual place as Pardis, when we were describing someone who behaved improperly in the Pardis, the description used is that he cut down some plants. Kloimer, what it means is Diber Klapi Maila. He spoke against Shemayim, whatever that means. He spoke against Shemayim. The Kivan, the Chaza, we're going to soon see exactly what the story was. Even the Chaza Metatron, he saw Metatron, the Siyavale Rishusa, Chaza Shaita Lemesiv, he saw that Metatron was given permission to sit in the presence of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, Lemichta Schusa, the Yisrael, to write down the Schusa of Yisrael. Amar, he said, Miri, I always learned, the Lamaila Ba'isa up there in the inner chambers of the Rebbeinu Shalom, Ain't Chum Yeshiva. You're not knows a lot of sit. Shema Shtei Rishuy saying maybe in fact there are two gods, and that's the mistake that he made. Okay, so let's see.
This is the one that's clear.
Huh?
This is the first that you call clear.
Oh, I skipped the whole shtickle Gemara. I apologize. I got into the Pardis, but I skipped the Gemara. So I have to go back to Eini. So we have now two stories, one with Rabbi Yochanan and Belos ben Arach, and one with Rabbi Yochanan and Yosy and Rabbi Shua, who had a close encounter with the Ma'aseh Makabah. I just wanted to mention, if I remember correctly, we had a Rabbi Yosy who, by his wife's funeral, proposed to her younger sister. I think that was Rabbi Yosy right? That his wife died, and right there he already asked his wife's sister to marry him. Zok to Gemara Vayter. Eini, is that so that all these people? I skipped Eini before. Eini is about 6 lines above the Tanur Rabban Abar Nichsul Pardis. So when I first started, I had skipped out of Shtickle Gemara. So I'm still on Yudalam Beis, but just higher up than I thought I was.
What happened by that story that you just brought up that he proposed to his sister?
I don't remember what the Gemara was talking about there. That's right. He had a lot of children, so he said, "Come take care of your sister's children." Amy, is that so that all these people had this close encounter? There's only 3 hartzois, meaning when one person agreed to what the other person was saying over about the Ma'aseh Makabah. Rabbi Yeshua Hitzer Devarim of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yeshua said over to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai his Havana in the Ma'aseh Makabah. Rabbi Kiva Hitzer Lefnei Rabbi Yeshua, and Rabbi Kiva did this in front of Rabbi Yeshua, and Chananya ben Chachinoi Hitzer Lefnei Rabbi Kiva. Ve'ilu Rabbi Lezer ben Arach loy kachoshev. This brisa that lists off the incidences where somebody was explaining properly and was made his Rebbe happy with what he said over, It doesn't mention this story that we have with Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, where Argamar says that Rabbi Yochanan also was very happy, and Rabbi Elazar ben Arach was hirtze the Ma'aser Merkava in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Zok Gemara the Artzi the Artu Kameka Chashu. In this list, in this brisa that we just learned, it only lists off people who had two encounters. A is someone said over to them Ma'aser Merkava and they were happy, and they had also said Ma'aser Merkava to another person who was happy. So it happened two times. Those are the only ones that make the list that this brisa lists off. But the Artzi, if somebody was Muratza, the Ma'aser Merkava, like Rabbi Elazar ben Arach in front of Rabbi Yochanan, but no one did it in front of Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, Loika Choshev, that's not one that's going to be on our list. In fact, Gemara, who was on this list, the Loi Archu Kamei, no one ever said the Ma'aser Merkava in front of him. So why is he different than Rabbi Elazar ben Arach? Why did he make a list? Because Choshev. So the Gemara, the Archu Mia Kamei Man the Archu. Because Chanina b'Chachinoi, he said over the Ma'aser Merkava in front of somebody, in front of Rabbi Kiva, and Rabbi Kiva said over the Ma'aser Merkava to a third party, and there, right, Rabbi Kiva did in front of Rabbi Shua, so that's also enough, because it was like a double incident of Ritzoi. It wasn't just a single incident like Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, now we are talking about the parties, Ve'elohein ben Azoi ben Zoyma, Achav Rabbi Kiva. Omer lahen Rabbi Kiva, Kishat Magim Eitel Adnei Shaish Tar, Al Toimu Ma'imayim, Mishum Shenemar Doiv Shkorim Lo Yikoin Lo Neged Einai, Ben Azai Hitzu Meis, Olav Akasha Voimer Yoker Ben Yashem Mafsel Sidov, Ben Zoyma Hitzu Nifka, Olav Akasha Voimer Dvash Motzasa Echol Bayecha, Pentis Benu Bakasai, and you have to spit it out, right? Acha Kitzu Tzunitiyais, Rabbi Kiva Yotze B'Shalom. Shalom has Ben Zoyma. They asked Ben Zoyma the following shaila: Mal Lisruse Kalba. Are you allowed to be Misaris a dog? Zok Toisvis, what's the shaila? Mishum she'af mechiroi oser lekarban. There's no option of anything that is shaykhus to a dog to ever be a karban, because if you swap out something for a dog, even that animal that you swap for the dog can also not be brought as a karban. So that's why that's why they're asking the shaila about a dog rather than other things. And Rashi said the same thing. Hoil the sirus ksivetz el mume carbon, since sirus is connected to carbonis, because that's one of the movement of a carbon. The kelav afilu chalipa vaser lemizbeach shumecher kelav asher l'sar shayilot. Maybe there's not such a problem. And
the sacred thing more just because it happens to be benzoma, because the question is a real drop.
I believe so. It's a real drop from the subject matter.
Right.
I think the reason why the Gemara inserts this is the same reason why by the Rabbis they throw walnuts around and they throw nuts around on Tisha B'Av, because the Rabbis would get so into the Avelos that they're in danger of passing out, of dying. So to distract them from the Avelos, they would throw nuts at them, and that would change the mood. So maybe we know the Gemara wants to make sure we don't get too into the Ma'aser Merkava. But anyway, Shalos ben Zayma Malus Husakalba. We told them it's not just something that's related to karbonis. It says Arzachem loisasu. Kol Arzachem loisasu. Anything that's even in your civilian life, not in hektish, is not allowed to be done. And then it says not only related to karbonis, but even about Arzachem, you shouldn't do something like this. Sirus, it's also to be Masaris. So the question is that because it conflicts with Pura Revu? Because there were a lot of shilas that were asked to Reb Moshe about women for one reason or another who wanted to be Masaris themselves. And is this Isser Sirus applicable to women as well? Because we know women are mechuyev in all lois says Shabbat. There's actually only, that's a good trivia question. There's only two lois that says that a woman is not mechuyev. There are two lois that a woman are not mechuyev. Anybody know what they are? One is lois akifu pas roishem, right? They don't have an issue to cut off their payos. And the second one is that they don't have an issur to be matama. A coin is not allowed to be matama a woman who's a kohen does not have an isser to be metama herself. So the shaila here is they asked her Moshe if a woman is allowed to be masarish. She's afraid of something that could occur in a pregnancy or something like that. So Moshe held that a woman was not allowed to be masarish herself. He was very strict about it. But there was a shaila where a woman asked and he said no. And then after speaking to her, he saw that she was she was so distraught in fear of a pregnancy. Maybe she had a bad experience. She was so distraught that he was afraid that it would cause her to crack up, to lose her mind. And he was martyred for her because then he already felt it crosses a line of pikuach nefesh. If she'll lose her mind, that's like pikuach nefesh. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. That's a Raddis. That's a Raddis. Then for sure they're allowed to stop the pregnancy, and even for mental reasons. I'm not opposed to it, but these are all questions that have to be discussed with Rav. Yeah, of course. Kizak Gemara. Shalu Espen the Espen another shaila, talking about getting into an interesting subject matter. Shakiba. Besula she'ibra. What if a besula became pregnant? Oh wow. Ma'al l'kohen gadol. May she marry a kohen gadol? Because it says by a kohen gadol, almana grusha v'chalol zaynis ela leigach ki im besula me'ama v'yikach isha. So a besula became pregnant. So first the question is, how did this happen and who's asking the question? So Rashi gives us two options as to what occurred. Besula shibra. There's a girl who's pregnant. The hi marriage she yimtzela besulam, and she promises, I'm telling you, I'm a betula, and I can prove it. Now Tosfos discusses what does that mean. So are you going to, on her word, are you going to let a kohen gadol marry her? So Tosfos tells us that there's methods to test as to whether or not she's truly a basula.
Well, didn't you tell us about the Ben Sira?
That's right. We're going to get to that. So Tosfos says she's claiming she wants a test. Question is, do you bother testing her or you ignore her? But there's another way that could have happened. Inami kohen gadol nasa. A kohen gadol married a woman, a basula. V'lo yada shemi uberes. The shachan forgot to mention that she happened to have been expecting at the time. But umatala basula. When he was bala, he thought that she was a basula. So here, the second case is he knows for sure she's a basula, but she was pregnant. And then they did a pregnancy test, and she was pregnant. I'm not sure how it was known that. Yeah, but this was accurate, I guess. Is he allowed to keep it? So that was the shayla. So the Gemara says as follows: how would she have become pregnant without a bia? Right? Do we say that she became pregnant through an actual bia, and Shmuel was a very, very big mumche in making bia? The Amar Shmuel, Shmuel was a doctor, and he was a mumche in things. I don't think we should just explain it pashup shata. So Amar Shmuel Yochal in Liva Kama Bilas. I have a method where I would be able to actually be boil a woman and impregnate her, and there wouldn't be any dam basulim. It wouldn't break her basulim. There's a way to do it that Shmuel knows. Are you chayshish that that's what occurred? And if that occurred, then in fact she's a ba'ula, and if she's a ba'ula, then her husband has to let her go. Or let's not be chayshish that something like that happened, and rather amalu the Shmuel shchiach. So the Dom answered, it's not likely that there was an actual bia. If she has her basulim, what probably happened was v'chashina and shema bambate ibra, like Chaim Tzvi mentioned, like we said, is where Ben Sira came from, and maybe she became pregnant because of zera that was in the nabati, and she was in, and therefore she's pregnant, but she's still a basula, and the kohen gadol can keep his wife. Frank the Gemara. How could you possibly say?
Sorry, it just seems the Gemara is trying to say that this highly unlikely occurrence is more unlikely than Shmuel's occurrence.
It's more likely.
That's what I'm saying. This highly unlikely occurrence is more likely
than Shmuel's occurrence.
Even though Shmuel said he can do it, And this is just a Maisa
Yeah, but only Shmuel could do it. Your average person can't do it. So to assume that somebody else was able to do it as good as Shmuel, that's
Artificial insemination.
well, this was not official, it was very real.
No, I'm just saying, but it's artificial insemination. So she wouldn't
She would not be a Ba'ula. Right. So if you could find a Kohen Gadol, then maybe she'd be able to marry him. Yeah. Okay.
From here, it's not that the incident with the Torah was mocked and all, it's not that she had kids previously.
That's right.
The Torah is mocked just
On
that
a bia.
somebody didn't enter.
That's right. Back to Gemara. How is it possible? How is it possible that this woman became pregnant from Zerah in an Ambati? Well, Amar Shmuel called Shichva Zerah, Sheinu Yoyer Kechet, Sheinu Mizras. It has to shoot out like an arrow with great force. And in an Ambati, that doesn't happen. Zok to Gemara, Meikar Nami Yoyer Kechet Sava. Maybe when it came out of the person's body, it was Yoyer Kechet. So it doesn't have to be Yoyer Kechet into the woman's goof. It has to be Yoyer Kechet when it comes out, and that proves that it has the potency to be able to impregnate somebody. But not necessarily that it have to enter that way into the goof, and could be, and that's probably what happened, and therefore she is a basura. Zok to Gemara weiter. Tanu Rabban. Ma'aseh Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya shahaya oimid al gav Maila b'Harabayis. He was standing on one of the upper steps going up the Harabayis. Now this was after the Churban, so Vaisach was even after the Churban. There were still some of the steps going up the Harabayis were still there, and they're still there today.
Oh, by the way, that's the reason why here in the Smedrish, the road is very, very mocked that every Friday afternoon, rain, no matter what, the mikveh is drained before.
That's right. Everyone's not put on that. Everyone's not put on
If
that.
it weren't for this
If a woman's
chashash, the
not allowed to
mikveh
take
would be
the
much,
man's
much dirtier.
I'm sorry?
So if it weren't for this chashash, the mikveh would be just disgusting. It would never get drained.
It's more like if it wasn't for this chashash, the mikveh wouldn't close 2 hours before Shabbos, and someone who wants to come late to the mikveh would be able to go. Right? The Rav has enough shilas on his hands. He's not looking for more complicated shilas. Okay, Zok to Gemara. What do you mean if somebody comes pregnant? If somebody comes pregnant, they'll sue the shul? Oh, it gets lipped. That's right. Okay, Zok to Gemara. Zok to Gemara. So what happened is Rabbi Shua ben was coming. For Ben Zayma, he saw Ben Zayma. Amad milafanav, and Ben Zayma didn't stand for Rabbi Yeshua in respect. So he was a little bit appalled. How is it possible that Ben Zayma wouldn't stand up out of respect for Rabbi Yeshua? Amar Lo, he told him, Ma'ayin ula'ayin Ben Zayma, where are you coming from? Where are you going? In other words, without a doubt, you're not a mechutzah. Without a doubt, your mind is somewhere. You're thinking about something. You're Torah, and therefore, I want to know what you're thinking about. Man, that would be very embarrassing if a Rav asked me that question after Shmuel Esrei. Shmuel Kamenetsky. Yeah. You know, Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky once went over to a bacher on Purim who was drunk, and he asked him, "Sag mir bacher, was ist dein größten Teufel?" So the bacher said, "Rosh Shiva, ich bin sicher, aber nicht so sicher." Sag to him
My
about
father asked me yesterday, right? My father asked me, and he called me up for the first time in 3 weeks. I mean, to be Chaim, see, what do you have to say? I told him that Zalman teaches me a daf a day. I got a lot to say.
So this is what he said. I was looking to see how much space there is between the Mayim El Yoinim. It says the Rebbeinu Shalom was Mabdol ben Mayim Lamoyim. I was trying to see exactly what is the clearance in between the two waters. And I found out there is the thickness of three fingers, maybe about 2.5, 3 inches. Shenemar, it says on the first day of creation, the Ruach Halakim was hovering over the lower water, like a dove that's hovering over its children, but not touching them. So there's a small gap. So Rabbi Yeshua told the Talmidav, Adain ben Zayim b'chutz. Ben Zayim is still out. In other words, he's wrong. He made a mistake in his assessment. Why? Michti, Baruch Elokim Rechevet al Pnei Hamayim Emes Hava. When is this pasuk quoted? B'Yom Harishon. Havdalah. When was Hashem Mavdol b'Mayim L'Mayim? B'Yom Sheni Hu Davoy. Tichsiv V'Hi Mavdol b'Mayim L'Mayim, and that was on the second day. So therefore, from Merachefes, which only occurred on the first day, that's not necessarily the condition on the second day when the Kadosh Baruch was mavle b'mayim l'mayim. So it's not 3 fingers. In fact, the Zoyma is wrong. Amar Bacha Bar Yaakov. So how much really is it? Kamalei Nima. It's like a thread, meaning it's much closer. There's like a thread width in between the Mayim Elyonim and the Mayim Atachtonim. Sorry? No, not permanent. On the first day, maybe there was a 3-inch gap because that's when it says Merachefes. But now it's no longer Merachefes. Now it's Mavlo bin Mayim L'Mayim. I don't know what was there. Mavlo means you push it further away, but that's not what the Gemara says.
Inadvertently, Yeshua almost caused Ben Zayman's death.
Why?
Because he told him that you're not that.
No, but he wasn't up there. I guess he wasn't right up there when he said that.
No, that's what happened. So Yeshua said, no, you didn't get it. So he went back.
Uh-huh.
And then
I hear. Rabbanan Amri, Rabban says it's Kiguda de Gamla. It's like if you have one beged on top of another beged, there'll be a slight space in between the two. I don't understand if one's on top of the other. I don't know why there's a slight space, but I guess there's a slight space, maybe microscopically. Aha, I hear it. Very good. Very good. Very good. I'm sorry. I was on. Good Gamla is boards on a bridge. When you have a bridge with wooden boards going across, right? So when you go over a bridge, normally there's the 2 stringers that hold the bridge, and then you run a whole bunch of planks across the board. So the space that would be left in between those 2 planks. Like 2 begadim that are lying one on top of the other.
The plank on top of the other one? What with the plank?
No, you normally would have the 2 pieces of wood that go across the length of the bridge, and then perpendicular to those you have a whole bunch of small boards that are maybe 3 or 4 inches by the width of the bridge, right? So the space in between those.
Oh, so they actually spacing.
That's right.
That space.
That's right, but it's not 3 inches. And then the third svara, the third shita was kitrei glimi de prisi adadi, that 2 begadim that are lying one on the other. Kasi the schite adadi, like 2 koises that are upside down, one on top of the other. You can't get them apart. Okay, so the Gemara. Achar kitzis v'netiyos. Achar. Now we're going to get into the story of Achar. Achar was kitzis v'netiyos. All because of Omer al titenes picha lachtois besarcha. You shouldn't allow your mouth to cause yourself to do a chait. We need to see the whole pasuk over here because it'll become relevant. Al titenes picha lachtois besarecha v'al toimer lefnei hamalach. Don't say in front of the malach kishkagahi because it's a mistake. Lama yiksayf alakim al kelecha. Watch it, Kadosh Baruch will be angry at your voice. The chibel is ma'isi yadecha and be mechabel and punish your ma'isi yadayim. So the Gemara says what happened is Acher. He said something improper. Mahi, what was this? Chazar mitatron. He saw mitatron. There's a whole big shot of who mitatron was. Mitatron was a malach. There are those who say that mitatron was chanoich, where it says that Chanoich was is tzaddik moed ve'inenu, and then he was taken away when he was perfect because Hashem didn't want him to get sucked into the chait, the chait that was going on in those days. But I'll call upon him. He was a well. This happened. That's correct. The Yisrael Rishusa lemesav lemichtav zchusa di Yisrael. He has Rishus to be there in Mamish in the Heichal Hashem. No one's allowed to stand. No one's allowed to sit. But he was writing the Schusam of Yisrael, so that's why he's allowed to sit. Some shittas hold he's allowed to sit because he was chanoich, he was holy, and a man is holier than a malach. There's a lot of Torah why he was able to sit. But he had a right to sit for a couple of minutes every day to write down the mitzvahs, to record the mitzvahs that Klal Yisrael did. Omar, so when Acher saw that, he said, Gemira de Lamala, Lahavalo Yeshiva, Sachrus, there's no sitting down, there's no arguing, there's no such thing as the back of someone's head. The face of everybody is seen everywhere. Again, we don't understand what that means. So if no one ever gets tired to sit down, maybe there's 2 reshuyos. So this led Acher to have doubts about Hashem HaChodesh Moechad.
Being able to see the back of somebody's head.
You can't see because every side of the head is the face.
Right. So how? But and that is so that we shouldn't think that there's shtei reshuyos, right?
No.
No. So what do you mean with shtei reshuyos?
No, since he saw Metatron sitting down in the Heichal Hashem, it must be the Metatron must be a God, a shtickle God himself. Otherwise, how could he be sitting in the Heichal Hashem? That was the whole issue. So Zok the Gemara, right away, Afkula Metatrin, they took out Metatrin, Umachyu Shitin Pulsa Denura, and they hit him with 60 sticks of fire. Now, Avada, a Malach doesn't do anything wrong. A Malach follows Hashem. The Rishonim bring down, that was done to demonstrate that Avada, he's not. Avada, he's not a god. Avada, he's just a Malach, or whatever being he is. So it's to demonstrate right away that there are not Shtei Rishus. Amrlei, my time at Chazise, lekam mikamei. They told the Malach, Metatron, or maybe he wasn't a Malach, whatever he was, they told him, why didn't you stand right away when you saw him and you know that you might fool him into thinking that the Shtei Rishuyos, right away you should have stood up. Is Yoivele Rishusa, so that was the aval that he did. Is Yoivele Rishusa, they gave Rishus to Metatron, Lememchap Zechfosa the Acher, to wipe out all of the mitzvahs of Acher. Yotza Baskal Amru, Shuvu, Bonim Shevavim. All people should come to tshuva chutz me'acher. So that was the punch. Now the Marsha darshans this pasuk, even though the Gemara doesn't. The Marsha says that this explains the whole lashon pasuk. Al titna espicha lachti es b'sarecha. Don't let your mouth cause an avera. Ba'al toimer lefnei hamalach kishkogahi. Don't say because there's a malach sitting down, because that will fool people to think that maybe there's shtei reshuyos. And that's why Hashem out there hit the Malach, because he had to demonstrate, in fact, that there's only Hashem Echad, U'Shmo Echad. So this always happens. Omar, he said, Hoyel v'hitrid hahu gavra mayhu alma. Since anyway I lost Eilam Haba, I might as well party in the world. Leipet l'shani by halma. I might as well listen. I don't have Eilam Haba anyway. At least let me have some Eilam Hazeh. And therefore, Nafak Achel Tarbishra. He went back. What's the first Aver that always draws him? Nafak Achas Ashkach Zoyna. That's always the first Aver. He didn't go buy a crepe in the candy bar. This is where he went first. Tava, he went over to her. You have to understand, he still was the same God Lador that he was 10 minutes ago, and he walks right up to Zoyna. Just imagine that image of a Yid with wooden pie is a Chushav Yid. He goes up to Zoyna. Amrullah, he says, excuse me, Balav Elisha ben Nebuya, you're the, hey, look, it sounds like Elisha ben Nebuya. Are you sure you want to do this? Is this for real? So he said, what did he do? Okar Pugla. He was an own tzaddik. People knew about it. So Okar Pugla Mimesher b'Shabbos. He pulled out a radish.
He was a Tana.
Ground on Shabbos.
He was a Tana. Elisha ben Avuya. He was the Gadol Adar.
That's right. Rabbi, I see you on YouTube all the time. How could you be doing this? So Akar Pugla Mimesher b'Shabbos. He uprooted a radish from the ground on Shabbos with a malacha dairais of Felicia, the Yovla, and he gave it to her. She says, I like roses. I don't like radishes. I'm sorry. Amra, she said, Acher, there's no way this is Elisha ben Nebuah. He must be Acher. And there are those who say that's where he got the name Acher. But there's a whole bunch of pshatim in the name Acher.
By the way, you mentioned that the people, just throw everything away. Yosy ben Yomin told me one time that when we say in Tehillim, all the time we say, Ki imcha aslicha laman tivore, right? Question is, what do you mean, laman tivore, that we should fear Hashem because he has slicha? Like, how does that inspire?
Because Hashem will take us back.
Right, so a person should never get so depressed and say, everything is
very nice.
No,
very nice.
Always has slicha.
Very nice. Very nice.
The story with Elisha ben Avuya was with the Kabiya Sabicha. Somebody asked him.
I'm going to get to that story in a second. That's great. So we're running out of time, and we're not going to finish the daf anyway. So I'm going to take the liberty to speak out a very interesting places that we have over here at our side, and we'll just be behind, which is Nishka Ferlich, because I have to say shir for Finkel tonight, and he's probably behind too, and Motzei Shabbos, and they don't learn Friday. So we'll see. I'll try to rush them up, slow walk us, and then we'll meet up on Motzei Shabbos. But anyway, what do we have over here? Why did he pull the radish out of the ground? To show that he wasn't Elisha ben Avuya, right? Did he need a radish? No. So isn't that a malacha shen shvicha legufa? So it's not really an affair either. Vaishacha, she wasn't such a lamdan. She didn't say, if those vice gardeners, it's a malacha shen shvicha legufa. But we know the famous story with Salavchad. Salavchad was the Mekoshes Eitzim. And it's brought down in the Gemara, we learned it, that he saw after the Meraglim, after Egelim were so down, he was afraid they would abandon the Torah, right? So what he did was he purposely was Machal Shabbos so that he should be killed, and this way it would reinforce that the mitzvahs of the Torah still apply. So I think the Mashal asked, so it's a malach shen shvicha legufa. He didn't need a wood. So if I'm not mistaken, the Mashal says that when the Dayan and Paskin, they Paskin with kavisha in avrayos. They say I did a malacha. They don't have to. They didn't know deep down inside he was just trying to create such a scenario. So they're allowed to kill him. But there are those who learn that could be that's not a malach shen shvicha legufa. Could be if someone does something, even though he does a malacha, he wants to do the malacha, but he just wants to show. Could be that's also mukhuyah. But or maybe he was just trying to fool her.
Or maybe we can say that he was ready to be in Zalda, but he wasn't ready to be Machal Shabbos.
Could be that happens too. That's right. There was a woman's body years ago, like 30 years ago, that was found in the warehouse of her husband's business. So it was a big tumult in the world at the time. So somebody asked me, was the guy from? I said he was Shomer Shabbos. He was not Shomer Leisirtzach. You have to decide for yourself if he was from. But anyway, how did it come to be that Elisha ben Avuya? How did it come to be that he got the Zohar forward? So the Gemara is going to say later that he used to listen to Goyish music. That he's a sing Goyish music. But
I thought he took off his
so Tosfos brings down several different stories. So Tosfos brings one story where he saw someone whose father told him, "Go make shluch hakan." So by Kabbalah Savicha Vesimecha, it says L'man Yarichin Yomecha. By Shaluch Hakan, it says L'man Yarichin Yomecha. He climbed up the ladder and he fell off the ladder and he died. So here, there's two mitzvahs that someone did. That by both of them it says L'man Yarichin Yomecha, and he didn't last too long. That made him go off the derech. But Tosfos shares with us a fascinating story about that happened by the bris of Elisha ben Avuya. So let's look at the story. It says over here, I'm halfway down through Tosfos, parallel to the top of the wide lines. Obey Hava Hamaisa, Avuya, Avi, the father, Ubi Hava Hamaisa. So I think he said it over himself. My father, Hava Megdoili Yerushalayim. He was from the greats of Yerushalayim. Ubiyom Shabbat Mahuli, the day of my bris, he invited everybody by Shivim Bebeis Echad, and he put them in a big hall where he was going to serve them. He gave them, they sat in the Mo'etzes Gedolah at Torah's special dining room. When the Achlan B'Shosin, Shorin, Metapchin, Maraknin, everyone was having a party as a bris. Amar, the Gedolim, Rabbi Elazar B'Shua said, Adalin, ask him be the two, if they're being Isaac in what they enjoy, the Gashmis of the bris, Nasoik B'Didon, let us shmuz and learning. Yoshu in his Asku B'Divrei Torah, and they started shmuzing and learning, and that brought down the Malachim. You're the Eish Min HaShemayim V'Kivaishon. There was a big fire around them. Amr Lo Navua. So my father, Avu Ava, my father told them, Gavrin, Ma, Bottom, Lisser of Basi, you're going to burn my house down. What are you doing? Amr Lo, they told him, Chas V'Shalom, this fire won't damage your house at all. El Yoshvin Ayinu, B'Choshvin Divrei Torah, Mitorah El Neviim, Neviim Luksuvim, V'Yadvarim Semechim Kenesinosan Misinai, and we were discussing there was such simcha, like the day the Torah was given from Sinai. Loi Be'esh Nasan, it was given with fire. So Avua saw, wow, this is the Koyach HaTorah. Amar, he said, Hoyel the Kach, Koyach Shel Torah. If this is the Koyach of Torah, in Yiskayim Ben Azeh, if my son survives, the Torah Ani Mafrishay, I'm going to be Mafrishim l'Torah. Well, officially, since his intent that his child should be a Ben Torah was not l'shem Shemaim, it's only because of the greatness that comes with it. Lefichach loy niskayim uboy. So there are those who tell us, how you talking? But because the guy was inspired from Loy Torah, that should ruin his child. So Rabbi Elvin spoke out from somebody, I forgot from who, but it was from a Litvish Gadol, that do you know when life begins? Life begins at conception. If you wait to the bris, then you want your child to be a Ben Torah, it's too late. You're already by conception is when you have to be davening and you have to be crying, and throughout the entire pregnancy, you have to be davening, crying that this child should be Oy of Torah, should love Torah. Once it's already the bris, that's too late. That's what some of the Mefarshim say on what happened. So the Avla was he didn't daven earlier. What?
He did it because
Well, those are words of Tosis, which is a little bit fair to understand. That's why one of the Mepharshim adds that the father wasn't interested. He only got interested then. He should have been interested a little bit earlier. Okay, so we're way behind now. We're almost a full block behind, but this is a bot that's loaded. So we'll be able to catch up. So we'll stop here on Tesvav Amar Aleph, and tomorrow we'll learn Tesvav, and I'll try to learn Tes Zayin as well, which is really Friday's daf, and Shabbos is Yud Zayin. So we'll catch up. But at the end of Motzei Shabbos, B'lei Neder, we'll be caught up.
You want to learn together with the speaker here with the Shabbos?
We're learning together with Finkel's group, Motzei Shabbos.